Hello, Minecraft fans, and welcome back to Scarworld. This time in Season 3, we went ahead and made ourselves a little Asian-inspired nook of the world, and it's not big, but this time focused mostly on detail. But before we go through these gates, which were inspired by Doksugong Palace in Seoul, look it up. First, let's take a little trip over to one of my side projects. You know how deserts often spawn those desert wells? Well, I decided to make one myself, and perhaps later on in version 1.20 or 21, this type of desert well will be naturally generated. This is, of course, a step well. So yes, I excavated the desert for nearly a square kilometer, it seems like, and without a beacon, and wound up with more sandstone than I could ever hope to use, a lot of sand too, and a lot of dirt and stone, but what I made was a beautiful, albeit not exactly functional, well, although you could go down and get water, so I guess it does function in a Minecraft sense. Something about stepwells just lend themselves to this perfect voxel world we live in. But enough of that. Get one last shot, and we'll fly away and get our first look from the air at the valley. I haven't got a name for this, but if you think of a name for this valley, please let me know in the comments here. Well, I think we should approach stylishly from the front and check out the worn and cracked stone walkway that's been overgrown with grass, next to the nice shiny, maybe falling apart walls as well. Light is really a challenge in Minecraft, and in this case, I decided not to care too much about it. My interiors are well lit, so that no mobs will spawn inside, but off in the wilderness here, there's no torch spam, and it can be dangerous after night. So. But of course, you see, I took a lot of care in placing custom rocks, in thinning out the grass so there was not too much, in cutting down just the right number of acacia trees, and planting lots of these lovely azalea trees, as well as adding some water features with some saturated dirt as a bottom, throwing in moss and some plants, and then making my front walkway with paths and these little light lantern letterboxes, whatever these might be. But let's continue on through the main event. There on the pedestal, you see him in all his 58 armor stand glory. This is my pet lion. Don't have a name for him. But I never had a name for the mermaid from Season 2 either. So if you think of a name, please let me know. Hit me up on Discord, and maybe that's what we'll call the lion. But this was a lot of work. So partway through making this base, I threw a plinth here and said, I think I want a stone lion statue. And then it just sat. And this is the very last thing I made in my valley here. And probably a good thing I did, because now every time I load in these chunks and all 58 armor stands load, there's a noticeable delay. But you can't put a price on a sculpture this nice. And I think it really adds to the atmosphere here. And I love him so much. But let's look at the base. This is my main palace. This is a palace. We've got the raw gold in the bottom. We got acacia wood and warped stairs, and of course, deep slate tiles. I don't know anybody who hasn't immediately started building with deep slate tiles, because they are one of the most pretty blocks in the game now. And of course, we got a little custom banner that I made and then just copied everywhere, because of course the palace should be well represented. This is the banner of the valley, of course, the banner of the kingdom that lives here, or lived here. I will say that it is completely empty. I didn't do anything to flesh out the insides here, or furnish them. I did finish the roofs and made, made all the corners nice and, not rough, and put in floors and railings, and again ceilings. We did a second floor here with a nice walkway, lots of airflow up here for those hot Savannah nights. We got a couple of cool utility rooms as well as a backyard. A nice spiral staircase right in the middle. However, as you've noticed, no furniture or use of any kind. Of course, this was not my base. My main base was my starter house, and the palace is just the main attraction here. But we have some nice green features, bamboo, and some cherry blossom trees to keep it colorful. And mostly the challenge was the floor plan and the layout of this place, and of course getting the roof all done just right. But it's oh, I forgot to mention the roof actually. We have, of course, a green roof with lots of plants and flowers and grass to cool down the palace when it gets hot. So that's nice. Now behind me, you'll see the two Guardian Towers, both alike but very different. Guardian Tower number 1 is made out of crimson wood and diorite stairs and warped wood roof, whereas, let me get up here on top of this tree, or not, I don't think this is going to happen. Parkour! No. Haha! Success. Whereas Guardian Tower number 2 is made out of warped stem, stripped of course, and smooth sandstone stairs and a red nether brick roof. And in a moment, we're going to hike on up there. But the idea with the Guardian Towers was to take the same format and paint it, copy and paste it in two places, but with a different palette and a different color scheme, and to see how that works. And I like that that they're similar, and they also, of course, don't match any of the other buildings in the valley, as if they've been here forever. That's how I like to think about it. Watching over the peaceful valley people. But here in the back, we have, of course, the obligatory Zen garden. I should probably not even get my, let me kick off the sand off my shoes, with something of a tree and a couple of rocks, because Zen garden. And over here, we have the cemetery, with all of the crazy memorials that these sorts of cemeteries always seem to have. Pretty nice, I think. And if we continue at the back, there's a path that leads all the way up the mountain. Pause halfway up to look back at this palace. I especially like the main roof here, with all of the crazy roof things going on and sticking out at weird angles. Of course, the shape on a roof like this is always challenging, but when you're combining so many different floors and pieces and shapes together, it becomes even more challenging. And the first thing you come up with is never what you wind up with at the end. It takes a lot of finessing to finally get it to a place that looks good and looks like the Asian architecture for which it's inspired. So up here we can go left to get to the beautiful Guardian Tower number 2 with, instead of walls, hanging glowberries. But there's a ladder that goes all the way up for looking out and jumping off. In fact, why don't we jump off and fly over, as long as no creepers get us, to Guardian Tower number 1 with, instead of walls, sugarcane. Pretty strange, I know, but I especially like the bright green that it adds, and it serves to keep me from having to come up with something else for walls. It's pretty cool. All right. Well, from here we can fly to, let's go to the first building that I made. And that would be this lowly, unassuming, let's go past this pond here, 1 second. What was I saying? This lowly, unassuming enchantment house. Yes, this right here is where I started almost a year ago at this point, and this was the first roof and walls or semi-open, semi-enclosed building that I made, and of course it was here that I enchanted all of my diamond gear and never ended up trading for netherite because ancient debris is hard to find. So of course, we have a little bit of bamboo on the slopes here, but it was important to me not to go crazy with the bamboo. So this is sort of where it originates, and it spread a little in little patches here and there throughout the valley, but not to all corners, which is important. And now I'm being shot at, so that's much better. All the baddies have burned away in the sunlight, and all that we're left with is me. So I had fun making this, and of course it's sort of a template for the rest of the buildings, but as you can see, I went with a different roof shape, and we went with without any walls, or rather birch trapdoors for the partial walls that we have here, and acacia fences out the back, which you'll see was replicated in some extent at my base house up the hill, and but I never did the birch trapdoors again. So you have to let me know if you like that in particular. Sort of went with all different walls in this valley. So up here we have the acacia doors, and up at the next one we have the birch doors. Never really decided what was the best. Let's take this guy out. All right, continuing down the path, we are introduced to something of an obelisk. It is a shrine or a totem here to the deep slate ore. Remember, when this world had just started, we had switched over to 1.17, and the deep slate ores were just introduced to the game. And I thought they were so pretty that I collected one of each and put them into a tower, and then kept that tower as a monument just to the cool deep slate ores that we got. And I can't take credit for all of these because the deep slate emerald ore, which is difficult to find, was given to me by my friend Crashbreaker. Continuing on, we have our obligatory nether portal, and then up these stairs we come to my base and a trader llama and 2 spiders who seem a little bit embarrassed that we walked in on whatever they were doing. Let's mollify the situation here. Alright, the llama will just have to stay. To one side, I have a pond and a azalea tree and a little bit more bamboo. But mostly, the experiment came with the shape of this building. Let's see if I can get over to this tree. There we go. And the plants. So you can see in places some of the roof has been replaced by the glowberry vines, and this adds a lot of life to it. Sort of looks overgrown, and there's azalea leaves up there, flowering azalea leaves, and more hanging glowberries. But it also means that there's holes in the roof. So, I mean, technically, it's not the most sound structure. Probably wouldn't protect you from any rainstorms. But it looks great. And of course, we've got the rocks and trees on your way in to my base. So over here we have my storage, and believe it or not, this is all the storage that I've needed for this whole season. I haven't been much on the grinding and the gathering. I've been more on the getting exactly what I need and then using it right away. But if we head right on up here, you can see that we have something of a sleeping room with lots of mats laid out on the ground for sleeping. And around the side here, there's plenty of space and potential for whatever I wanted to add. For instance, maybe a super smelter or a nether wart farm or something. But never got around to it, and actually never found the need for it either. But on this side, we have a small villager trading hall in the zoo style. So over here in the librarian enclosure, we see librarians in their natural habitat, exposed to many books and crafting tables and lecterns. And in the cartographer habitat, we have some maps of the nearby valley. We also have a stone carver habitat and a particularly troublesome uh, Fletcher habitat. I say that because zombies love to run right up these stairs and immediately zombify my Fletcher. So he spent most of his time in the green. But I think that's an okay place to be, as long as you get healed in the end. All's well that ends well. Well, behind the staircase, in back of the main base, we've got more plants to add that lush vibe, and something of another monument, I suppose. Something of another shrine here. This was mostly just me using my imagination and deciding, when I look out across this valley at all of that space over there, which is not part of it anymore, what do I want to see? And so I like to just add in these details and fill in all the hidden spaces in between the main buildings in the base. And I think it turned out. It also is a good excuse to put some lanterns around here. Because again, no torch spam, no mob prevention, lots of skeletons and creepers, and lots of not fun times. So I think that about covers it for the buildings. Let's head right back in to our main palace, where we have one last ceremonial thing that we must do. How you doing? Hi. And that is, of course, observing the landmark where on the 10th of July, almost a year ago, I first planted my sign and declared that this valley would be my main base. And since that day, I have not moved this sign. But it's finally time to take it down, because the base has been built. It no longer needs to be claimed, and it no longer needs to be mine either. From now on, anyone who wants to can come here and enjoy these walls and enjoy this lion statue and take up residence in these empty halls here. And I especially recommend flying around and watching some of these towers come in through the fog. I think there's a nice effect there as the valley renders into view. But if you're still watching, that's all I've got. Thanks for tuning in, and maybe I'll see you next time when we come back to Scarworld for Season 4. Thanks. Bye.